The House Homeland Security Committee kicked off hearings into Biden administration policies from the border town of McAllen, Texas. They say it's to get a first-hand look at the crisis on the southern border. Democrats on the committee chose to stay home, calling the move a political stunt. CBN's Burke reports.
Chairman Mark Green defended his decision to hold Wednesday's hearing in Texas, saying it's important for lawmakers to get a first-hand look at what's going on if they're going to make informed decisions going forward. He also had some harsh words for his absent committee members.
You can't have bipartisanship if the other side fails to show up for their duty. And in the Army, when someone didn't show up, we called them AWOL, or absent without leave. Their place of duty is at this hearing because it's a full hearing, and they're not here. They're AWOL.
This hearing focusing on changes the Biden administration made to U.S. immigration policies when it took over.
Chief, in fiscal year 2020, the policy was detain and remove. The entire objective was to avoid releasing any illegal immigrant for any reason. In 2021, Secretary Mayorkas, the new administration, gutted all of those policies. Do you acknowledge, as the chief of the Border Patrol, that the driver of the crisis that you have described, of this dramatic change in flow, the policy is the policy of this administration to release instead of detain or remove illegal immigrants?
Law enforcement's pretty simple, sir. You have to have capacity and you have to have consequences. And anytime you don't have consequences, you're certainly going to see some increases.
Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz admits DHS doesn't have operational control, pointing to 5 sectors along the border that aren't secure. Sheriff Brad Coe of Kenny County, Texas, says his jurisdiction is under siege due to the amount of border crossings by illegal immigrants and smugglers.
We're averaging between 160 and 180 people per night that are going through the county unchallenged. That's roughly 60,000 people enter through my county this year.
Lawmakers also focusing on how Mexican cartels are using the chaotic border situation to flood the U.S. with drugs like fentanyl.
Fentanyl-involved deaths has increased by over 230% since Biden has taken office. In my district alone, we have had fentanyl-involved deaths increase by over 350%.
Assistant Director for Homeland Security Investigations, Stephen Kagan, told lawmakers his teams have found that China is the source of the fentanyl supply chain, producing the chemicals needed to make the drug and shipping them to Mexican labs.
We've seized, I believe it's a little bit over 3.3 million pounds of precursor chemicals coming from China entering into Mexico.
Republicans say testimony like what they heard on Wednesday will not only help shape future legislation, but will also help hold the Biden administration accountable. Burke, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, Caitlin. Gordon, back to you.
Well, it seems clear the administration doesn't want to enforce the current law, and the whole let's release into the United States is a dramatic policy change, and that as a policy change that's been heard around the world. And so now you have, not just dozens, but over 70 countries where people are leaving and coming because they heard the word the border was open. That even if they get caught, they're going to be processed and then released into the United States. So that message has gone around the world. And if you're not going to enforce the law, then, I've got to ask, why? What is your end game here? Because the end game for the United States is 3 million people a year who don't have jobs and don't have a visible means of support. So that means they're going to be flooding into our already overloaded cities, trying to find the American dream, and it's just absolutely crazy. I don't understand it, but we've been reporting on this now for some time, raising the flag. This is a real problem. This is a crisis on our southern border. Every single one of the law enforcement personnel on the border says this is a problem. We're creating things that we literally can't solve. And if we just would enforce the law and not either detain or remove, then you can stop the flow. But if they're not going to enforce it, I just shake my head. Why did you take an oath in office? What are you really trying to do? And I still can't figure out what's their end game here. What's the possible benefit either to them politically or to the country from allowing this policy to go? It literally makes no